I'll speak up. There's no mic system, I don't think. Nope.
Oh, yeah,
There used to be no microphone in St. John's Church. And I thought I was in the church in the early 70s. I can't quite do it anymore. Anyway, my name is Father Don Dahl, and I was chairman of the department very early on in 1976 when I came back from working on a book project, which actually got me rank and tenure here. I knew I couldn't get rank and tenure here, so I knew I had to find a project. I went off to what I knew. I had taught as a young man for 3 years on the Indian reservation up in Rosebud. And so, this was after they took over Wounded Knee and things like that. And so I said, why don't I go back and do something? So I took a year off from Creighton, and I worked as a parish priest up there among kids. I had taught, how many years before that? At least 10, 15 years before that. So the people all knew me, and they remembered me because I was quite outspoken. Anyway, we'll leave that at that, okay? But I'd like to discuss, this is really an honor to be here to honor John and his work. I love that quote that Jeannie used at the beginning of John's obit. Happy are the painters, for they shall not be lonely. Light, color, peace, and hope will keep them company to the end, and almost to the end of the day. Sir Winston Churchill. Isn't that a great quote that Jeannie put at his own? Very, very nice, Jeannie. So it was only 2 months ago that Jason Plough suggested that I go to John Thein's beautiful studio in Vincent. And Jason cleared it with John. I hadn't seen John in decades since we taught together in the early 70s. What happened? I was chairman of the department when I came back in 1976 for 12 years. John, actually, we had a great time when we visited after I made this picture. That day we visited. This was April 25th on a Saturday afternoon. And after a while, we were having a wonderful visit, talking about old times and what we had done in the department. The faculty members, President Jerry Orney, and I won't try to tax my memory here. But I was chairperson for 12 years. And the last 2 years of chairmanship, it was difficult. It had become tiresome. Those jobs are awful. You have to do all these reports for the administration. And I was finished. I felt like it. But I had 2 years to go. And sometimes I plan meetings and do meetings. I want to get things done. Damn it. And so everything lined up. John was very patiently, he would stop me. And he was always right. He wanted the department to be very professional, and he was very professional about it. And in fact, in those years, he brought in the work of, what's his name? I have it right here. Mauricio Lasensky. You know those Nazi drawings? Oh, they're awful, but torture, beautiful exhibit. And remember, now we were in the old, what they call it, the nursing building. No, the nurses did not want it. It was the old dental school at the end of the mall. And so nobody wanted it. I said, we'll take it. I redid the building over the summer, and we started having classes there. And it worked out wonderful. It gave us a presence on campus, and we stayed there. Then also I took over, I don't know if you remember that old Parks and Recreation garage on the triangle on 30th, just west of the city. I said, oh, can we use that? I redid that building for 10 grand. In the summer, we made it into a theater, and I got Morrison, the president, to call it the interim of Performing Arts Center. So that worked out well, both of those spaces, you know. And I remember we did grow and developed in this old dental school building. It was perfect space until the university recognized, hey, that was a hell of a building. And now it's the humanities building, and it's completely redone. It's very, very nice. And I lobbied for 25 years to get this building. 25 years. I went to Morrison, who was a classmate of mine as a Jesuit. And I said, we got to do something. And it had been on the list to do something for 30 years. And I kind of embarrassed him into doing it. He wanted to put the money into into the endowment fund. So they went down to Kansas City and had a meeting, and they said, okay, we're going to do it. And they put aside $12 million to do this building. And yes, it cost 14, which really annoyed him to no end. So anyway, we got this building built, and we moved in here in 1993, and it was a wonderful time at that time. And that's the time I left, what do you call it? I left the department not too long after that, because I had built a computer lab here, and I built another Mac lab in 1989 up there. So I was going to two departmental meetings, art department and journalism. It's kind of heavy, you know? So the dean said, hey, why don't you just go with journalism? And I did somewhere in the 90s, in the late 80s. So I have not been associated with the art department since then, until today. Anyway, it's wonderful to be in this space and see John's work on the walls. So, anyway, I often wondered, and I never got a chance to ask John, I had the privilege of being with John the last 10 days of his life. I can't believe what it was. It was 3 weeks and 2 days after this photograph was made, he died. It was such a short and quick time when he went into the hospital. And if you don't mind, I asked Judy if I could just share what happened in some of those days, the last 10 days. After I made this picture, I heard he was in the hospital. And so I called Judy and I said, can I come out and visit? And again, I wrote in my journal, I said, profound visit with John Thein. I forgot exactly what we talked about, but we had a wonderful visit, and he seemed to really enjoy my being there. And so, and then I had heard about, well, can you play that? You can play in the other room, just start that. So he told me about this icon. He said, icon? What icon? He said, there's an icon by the riverfront. That Littleton also did an icon from there. For me, an icon is something, Greek Russian Orthodox. So icon, it's a beautiful sculpture depicting the Lewis and Clark Trail. And so we can loop that a little bit. It's a video, is it running? It's just a video. I don't do video. It's not my thing. Don't like doing video. I hate editing it. So I like photographs. I'm current with all the digital photography now. So anyway. So when I was at the end of our talk, I noticed sitting in front of this big painting with Mrs. Dillon, and he told me who the other person was sitting in the painting. So it was a nice painting. So I framed him inside that picture, and 3 weeks and 2 days later, he died. So I was shocked when I heard he was in the hospital, so I called Jeannie, could I come out and visit? And so I'd like to describe what happened in those next 10 days, each day, day by day, as I had the privilege of accompanying him on his last final journey, which we didn't know when he was at first in the hospital. And I was shocked how cognizant John was of his situation. So I noted in my journal it was a profound visit, and I recall praying together with them on Friday that 21st. And John had a profound respect for Jeannie's Christian Catholic faith. He really respected that. And so he allowed us to pray. So, and then the next day I went back and I did a video. And he was really thrilled. I biked along. I bike almost every day, 18, 20 miles. I bike right past this icon. I never even stopped to look at it. I'm sorry. I apologize to John. Sorry. And it was he thoroughly enjoyed this video. It's a little shaky on the iPhone, but it's really good. It was good for him, bringing it all back. It was a great experience. At that time, let's see, on the 26th, I visited John and Jeannie, and the doctors had told John there was no hope, there was nothing more that they could do, and they suggested hospice, and he resisted greatly. He wasn't going to do hospice. If he would have died in about 3 days without the dialysis. But I had a fabulous experience with both my parents with hospice in Wisconsin. One of the first hospice I photographed, actually it's in my last book, photographing the process with my mother as we faced hospice together. And it was a great experience. We did it again 18 years later with my father. Hospice is a wonderful thing, and it's doing really well here in Omaha. So that was on the 26th. He didn't want to hear about it. The next day, Jeannie told me how John enjoyed my visits. So on the 29th or 28th, I forget, John had the doctors remove the 2 tubes that were supposed to remove the cancers. It was a very viscous solution which they could not draw out of his lungs. And Dylan told me that the family hoped at that point that would cure John, get that out of the lungs and be done. That did not happen. So, and I was so impressed with John's courage as he faced death. He said, I want to face death with a smile on my face. And that's when I remember writing his good friend Tom Kirsch about his condition. On Sunday, April 30th, I ran into Littleton visiting John, and Bob Bosco had just been there. And I remember praying with John and Jeannie, and John was so respectful of her faith. I knew it would be consoling to Jeannie if I anointed John with the holy oils that I always carry with me when I visit the sick in hospitals. He said yes, and I anointed him. And both Jeannie and I were hopeful that it would help him on his final journey. In the first days of May, I remember talking with Becky and reconnecting. I think that was it that reconnected you with Jeannie. On the 3rd of May, I dropped off this book because I knew he knew, and we worked with Lee Lewis. This book that I've been with, it just came out a month ago. It's one of those. Anyway, so I have a couple copies, and I told people I have a few copies for people who really knew Lee Lewis. And they seem to enjoy going through it because Lee was quite a character. He founded our department, and I took over from him as chairperson. So, and now, on the May 5th, I recall another good visit with John. He described how painful the experience he had with dialysis, and he said he would not do another. Dialysis was so painful, and he said it described putting him in another space. With the pain medication, he was having delusions. John did not like having delusions. I think he wanted to face death forthrightly and honestly. And that's what he did. Did I mention? He said, I want to die with a smile on my face. Did I mention that? Yes. And obviously that's something, that's courage, you know. In one of those nights that he couldn't sleep at 3 a.m., he got up and clearly spelled out and drew on 4 pieces of paper how he wanted his Wounded Knee pictures hung in the gallery that will honor him. And he signed it. It was next to his bed. On the 6th of May, I sent Jeannie a YouTube link to the homilies that I record for Father Larry Gillick, who is the spiritual director at Great. I've done the last 2 years of his homilies. They're on YouTube. And she viewed it with John. And I forget exactly what Larry was talking about, but he's profound in talking about the spiritual life. On the 7th of May, when I visited John, he was clearly waiting to die, and he was sleeping a lot. The next day, on May 8th, when I joined Jeannie, Chad, his wife Julie, and Joni's mother for the last hour of John's life, we prayed together as John was dying. It was such a privilege to accompany those who are close to us as they make their final journey to whatever we approach when we die. If it is new life, as Christians believe, we prayed that John would receive one hell of a surprise. So that was it. It was my privilege to be there, and an honor to accompany John in the last 3 weeks and 2 days of his life. I stand in admiration at his